Hello, my name is Fabian Sanglier, Chief Solutions Architect at SoftwareAG Government Solutions here in the US. Today, I'm here to show you how you can automate the complete configuration of SoftwareAG API Gateway platform using an infrastructure as code approach. In this video demo, I'll be leveraging a common ops automation tool called Ansible. And I created two sample projects that I put on SoftwareAG GitHub with a lot of Ansible code to get you started quick. Okay, let's get to it. But first, let's do a very quick recap as to why this is all important. In your environment, you first have likely multiple levels like dev, test, staging, prod, multiple data centers or multiple clouds, and multiple regions. Now, if you have to deploy API Gateway in all these different places, you have to also configure them properly based on where they are deployed. And if you are to do that all manually, you can just imagine how it surely will lead to quite a bit of frustration. And these are some of the issues that will surely creep up as you're doing all this manual config work across all these environments. First, all these manual configurations are just time consuming. And the effect of that is that it will be quite hard to quickly recreate an environment from scratch if you have to not only install it, but also configure it manually. Then for 3 and 4, those are possible configuration issues that you may introduce, or different ways of configuring the software based on the environments and frankly based on how you felt that day. And finally, on the topic of configuration consistency over time, it's going to be difficult to track and audit all your configuration changes that you're making against dev, test, staging, as well as against your multiple data centers or cloud. And the effect of that is that also it will be quite hard to reapply a configuration set from, say, a week ago, a month ago, or even a year ago. And overall, this is why this topic of infrastructure as code and automation is quite important for anybody wanting to operationalize SoftwareAG API management platform and avoid all these issues mentioned before. So how are we going to do it? First, the API management by SoftwareAG has all the functions exposed over public APIs itself. And this will enable us to programmatically configure all parts of the software. And secondly, we'll then execute all these configuration APIs in a structured and automated way using Ansible. Okay, now we understand better the general concepts of why and how. Let's get into it. For this demo, I created two projects. Number one is a common library of Ansible roles specific to the installation and configuration of SoftwareAG products like API Gateway. And project number two is a sample configuration project that leverages this common library to configure a blank API Gateway from scratch with all the config items we want. And here is the project on GitHub. The common library Ansible roles, as I was saying, it contains a lot of roles for different products of SoftwareAG. In this demo, we'll be using the configure API Gateway role that has many different tasks available to configure many different items. And the second project is the sample API Gateway Ansible project, which is the one that will be running to configure our API Gateway from scratch. What's interesting in that project is that we'll be configuring all these items here as explained in the documentation. So I will go very quickly over them, but changing the administration password, adding SSL configuration certs, setting up some ports, adding some settings, LDAP connectivity, load balancer, promotion stages, create some sample users, groups. There is all sorts of things we are creating here, right? and that is really to prove that sort of infrastructure as code and automation of configuration. And for this, I've created two servers, one for API Gateway, one for API Portal, with bare-bone installation of both software. And now this is where the fun stuff happens. So I'm on my Ansible server right now, and I have two projects. I have that common library project, which is needed, and I have that sample project. We're going to go into the sample project. We're going to go to the configuration folder, and in there we are going to run the apply config for the environment mydev. And now we are going to let it run for a few minutes. At the end of this run, there will be all the configurations that we have added in our Ansible code created onto the gateway, and we'll be able to rerun that playbook over and over again. It will either fix any manual mistakes that were made or reapply new configurations as you update your code. Okay, the playbook is now finished and executed without any errors. So let's verify what it did on the API Gateway now. So let's open our API Gateway screen. The first thing that we will check is that the password has been changed. So the new password that I put was something new. Okay, so that's been applied. And then let's quickly review the different configuration items that were added. So let's first go to administration. And in here we see now that we have load balancer information that was added. We also have some extended settings that were added as well based on our code. If we go in security, we've added some key store and trust stores, as well as assign them for outbound connections. We've also added various ports that are now active and fully configured in the API Gateway, one of which is the secure port for Gateway, which has been added as well, the new search that we just added before. Then if we go to destination and API Portal, we also have pre-configured the API Gateway to API Portal connectivity, and that will be useful for the publishing of assets from API Gateway to API Portal. Okay. The next item that we've added was around user management. We've created a few sample users, some sample groups here, some sample teams, as well as an LDAP configuration as well that was automatically added. Okay, so all this was created by the Ansible playbook. And now if we go to the API proxies themselves, we've added two API proxies that was imported automatically by the playbook. Then we've added also some global policies that we also automatically imported. We added some applications and some packages and plans. Okay, all this was automatically created by the playbook, the Ansible playbook, through the internal APIs that I was mentioning we would be calling. Okay, and last but not least, all those assets were also published to the API portal. So if we go to API portal now, this is our API portal. It was empty before. Now we go to API gallery. We see those two new APIs that were automatically published, as well as the API packages that we've created in the gateway. They are also automatically published now into the portal. So this is just to demonstrate that the playbook ran in a few minutes and created all this. So now let's say I'm an administrator going into the API Gateway UI, and I made some changes that were not intended. Let's say I'm deleting the bookstore API, and then I maybe also went into the administration and I delete a few ports here. And then I went into the users and deleted that user as well. Okay, so that's enough. And so now, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to rerun the playbook and essentially see at the end that all our deleted configuration was re-added properly by the automation. Okay, so now the playbook is done again. We see that we have no errors. We have one ignore, which is on purpose. The playbook tried to change the password again, but the password was already changed before, so we just ignore that one. But long story short, going to the API gateway again, reloading the screen, and then we are going to see that our API bookstore is back, republished, active, everything else. The playbook worked on it, fixed it. Okay, what the other thing that we deleted were the ports. Let's go to security and ports. And now we see that the port 5443 is added. We had deleted the 66 and 77, I believe. So they were all re-added properly based on what's explained in our code. And then the last one that we had deleted was the sample user. API admin was also re-added and re-added to the right group as explained in our code again. And speaking of code, this video is not meant to be a tutorial on the code itself, but we can take a look at it for some perspective on what it looks like. So first, let's find our project on SoftwareAG GitHub. Okay, so we have the github.com/SoftwareAG. We arrive on this page. We search for Ansible. There are a few Ansible projects, one of which is the API Gateway Ansible, which I've created. We open this project, we go to configuration, and this is our general projects for configuration. In here, few items to generally look at. First, the playbook itself. This is the apply config playbook we've been running 2 times already. If we look at this playbook, it's the general structure of all the tasks we need to run in order to configure everything we want. First, in that playbook, we load the variables. We check that gateway is alive and well by checking the ports, and then we start performing all the configuration tasks like updating the user passwords, uploading trust store, key stores, setting the port, setting users, groups, etc. Right? All those tasks we've been looking at in the previous sections. And as you can see, each of these configuration roles require a certain amount of data to be passed to them so they can perform their tasks. And these data items are defined in the variables that we can see here for users, for groups, for ports, etc. Right? And those variables are defined in those variable files, which are the second items to look at in this project. Let's go to the vars folder, and here we see the variable files that essentially contain the different data items to pass to the different roles. And if we look at one of them, you'll surely start to get a good feel on what configuration as code really means. So let's look at user management, for example. That's an easy one to understand. So those variables for users and groups and access profiles, this is what it looks like. This is the type of data items that we are passing to our roles. And the nice part is that it's well defined, it's in code, it's in our Git, and you can essentially update it as needed if you want to add a new user or new groups or assign a user to a groups, etc. It's all codified in such a format, right? So for users, we can see that we pass an array or list of different types of users we want to create. Sample user 1, 2, and 3, and each of them have some information: first name, last name, passwords, email address. And then for groups, same thing, we create groups, but also we add that user to the group, right? So we have a way to do those association as well in the data structure, right? And access profiles, same thing. We create those permission profiles or teams, called teams in API Gateway, and then we assign a group to those access profiles. And we can do that, again, all in code. Okay, and now the last piece of the puzzle is how we can configure those API gateways in multiple environments. So that's where we have created in this project an environments folder that does contain the environment specific values for each of our environments, dev, prod, etc. Right? So if we look at dev, now for dev specifically, we have some of those values that are very specific to dev, whether it is a URL, whether it is a different password for the dev administrator account, whether it is different certs, right? So those things that may change from environment to environment, so you can set them up in that third level configuration file. Again, all in code. You change something here, you rerun the playbook, it will be applied on the gateway or the portal as the role defines. Okay, that's it for this demo. I hope you enjoyed it. And like I explained before, the projects are all on GitHub at the following links. So I encourage you to try it all for yourself against your own API gateway environment, and hope you will enjoy it as much as I do. Again, my name is Fabian Sanglier with SoftwareAG Government Solutions. Feel free to drop me a line on GitHub if you have any questions on what you just watched. Thanks for watching. Until next time, see ya.